And I'm excited to share a bit about how my team is revolutionizing health monitoring. And as you have probably heard, that 1 in 3 American adults suffer from hypertension. Now the question is, do you know the prevalence rate is actually rising? Delay. Oh, there we go. Oh. As a matter of fact, by 2035, about 42% of the American adult population will be hypertensive. And as the single most modifiable risk factor to cardiovascular diseases, having a well-managed blood pressure is something that we probably all share. And I would like for you to meet Oliver. I first met Oliver when the both of us worked as technologists at the World Health Organization during the SARS epidemic. For more than a decade, Oliver has battled hypertension, and despite being on multiple blood pressure meds, he still struggles to keep his blood pressure under control. In order to identify the source of his blood pressure spikes, Oliver was looking for a tool that can measure and monitor his blood pressure throughout the day. And unfortunately, the only tool out there is an ambulatory blood pressure monitor, a device that hasn't seen any innovation in decades. So he and I teamed up, and we built something to do exactly that. Now, you may say, hey, Catherine, well, is Oliver one of those quantified self people that wants all sorts of data? I mean, not everyone is like that. Well, yes, he is. And so are most people that suffer from chronic illnesses. And as Dr. Kraft has said earlier, we really will be moving towards a quantified health environment. So what we built is a wearable for the upper arm that measures blood pressure continuously without relying on the need of a cuff. This thing sits passively under clothing so that you can now begin to track and trend your blood pressure throughout the day without being interrupted in your day-to-day activities. Pretty cool, huh? Now, how does it work? Well, with every single beat of the heart, there's a pulse wave that travels along your artery. The stiffer your artery is due to aging, plaque, the harder your heart has to work, and then the faster that pulse wave travels. Known as pulse wave velocity, it's closely correlated with blood pressure. Our sensor uses radio waves, then detects those pulse waves, and measure blood pressure on a beat-to-beat basis. In our most recent clinical study, a validation study, oops, let's go back a little bit, but in our most recent 30-person study, I made up, where that we have demonstrated that our cuff is as accurate as a traditional blood pressure cuff. And we are gearing up to go into a study at UCSF now as a preparation for our FDA filing. We anticipate that our device will hit the market sometime in 2018. It will be made available initially through clinics and hospitals because there's quantifiable benefits when ambulatory blood pressure monitoring is incorporated into hypertension diagnosis and treatment. With a team of medical device experts, data scientists, and health IT specialists, we are well poised to transform and grow a market that has seen very, very little innovation to date. Thank you, and I'm open for questions.
Fantastic. Another great company. They're all yours.
So is it something that would also work with sporadic usage? Like if you know you always spike in the afternoon, if you only wear it in the afternoon, or does it need to be worn all day?
No, absolutely. So this is very much suitable as a spot check uses as well, and not only just certainly for the consumers who want to take something out to sort of see, hey, how's my blood pressure doing? You can see this being useful in triage when it comes to ER, when it comes to diagnostics. I mean, the application of this is tremendous, and we really see ourselves and the technology to fundamentally displace all vital measuring blood pressure sensing apparatus in existence. bold, I know, but you know what? We need to have, again, to get to that exponential reach, we need to do that.
So we have a team member who's from Fitbit, so I can confirm that there's a huge group of the population that want to track everything about themselves. So a crazy question is, have you thought about, is there an approach to just go more of a consumer angle, where it's more tied to more just stress monitoring and wellness in parallel with waiting for these trials? Because this process takes a long time, but if you're able to tie that in, it's like MyFitnessPal, it ties into just your overall wellness and state of being. And we're always seeing rise in trends and people being more aware, pursuing more meditative apps and such. So could that be a possibility?
It certainly is a possibility, because we know that cortisol will constrict your blood vessel and raise your blood pressure. Now the question is, how do we present that data back in a way that is FDA acceptable, right?
But I think if you do the consumer approach, you can use that to survey. So for example, if during the course of a week, you know now trending this day is extremely stressful, you could actually pop up in your app and ask, well, what's going on right now? You're at like your most stressed, your highest blood pressure time is going on right now. Yeah. Maybe you should take a moment to take a deep breath, or ask
go to your Zen place.
Right?
Absolutely. So contextual feedback loop is exactly what we're aiming for. Now, in terms of, again, it comes down to what sort of information that we can provide without FDA saying, now you are a medical device and therefore you must be cleared in a certain way. But imagine the day where I can take all of your Outlook calendar information, overlay your blood pressure trends, and see what meeting is stressing you out, right? I mean,
do you imagine that most people that pick this device over the typical cuff right now are going to be wearing it most of the day? And what is that experience like?
Right. So the experience will be, it sits there passively. So we've spent a lot of time working with insertional design firm. Actually, our ID firm is a company that built Nike's Field Band. Really thinking about how do you, the thesis here is that it should not be a sick band. It should be something that, you know, inspires and is comfortable. So there's a lot of work that's gone into material design and how the design is being formulated. And I do see that it's something that people just sort of really become accustomed and get used to it.
Building on Leon's comment, if that's the case, even post-FDA, what's the decision-making between going through the clinics versus really trying to build a consumer brand and going straight at the consumer?
Money. And so the interesting about the consumer-facing angle is that perhaps what we can do, because our IP is in the sensor, right? Our IP isn't just in the product, and we are not taking off-the-shelf sensors. Because we're devising a set of IP from the ground up, a new sensor from the ground up, we could potentially work with an existing consumer brand to essentially take this to market. From an enterprise perspective, I believe there's an untapped market in ambulatory blood pressure monitoring. There's existing reimbursement code in place. And so where that today it's not more widely prescribed really due to the crudeness of device, how the data is presented back is difficult to interpret, and then of course a reimbursement pathway. And I think there's an opportunity to produce a service around it that we can take care of all the back-end challenges that a doctor doesn't, or a clinic doesn't want to have to go through, but for them to have the tools to deliver better care as it comes to treatment of hypertension. And no one is looking into that right now.
Can you talk a little bit about the cost structure for the device?
Sure. We anticipate that the COGS on the device will be sub 50. As a matter of fact, it will probably reach in that $25 to $35 range. And again, if we are going into a service-based model with hospitals, I mean, this becomes a reusable device, and the cost and economics is you know, tremendous. Tremendously positive, that is.